Central issue around transparency of body camera video is who gets to see it and when do they get to see it. The opinions range from the belief that every minute of body camera video is a public record and can be viewed to every minute is protected under existing law. The purpose of having our next panel member to appear today is to summarize what existing law under the Public Records Act provides or excludes, and to present current case law and how that may transcend into the release or retention of body camera video. It's my pleasure to invite a subject matter expert up on this issue, Deputy District Attorney Jason Lustig, Deputy in charge of the Discovery Compliance Unit of the Los Angeles District Attorney's Office. Welcome.
Good afternoon.
And we had one more session planned for today, one more block on cost, but I think we've kind of gone over that, and in lieu of time, you'll be our last speaker, so thank you.
You're welcome. I want to thank the committee for having me. My name is Jason Lustig. I'm a Deputy District Attorney from Los Angeles County. I've been a Deputy DA for 25 years. And I've been in this position many times in my life where I've had to speak to an audience that's been listening to people speak at them for 2 hours and try to persuade them to my viewpoint in the case. And I want to go off the page just for a minute, because if I go right into the Public Records Act, I think I'm going to bore you pretty quickly. First, the hot-button issue of whether officers can review the videos before they write the reports. I agree with the comments generally by law enforcement that you've heard in here that they should be allowed to review videos before giving statements, with one exception that I haven't heard, which is if the investigators of a particular incident have a reasonable suspicion that the police officer, though on duty, committed a crime in using force or whatever particular action was captured on video, that police officer may have transitioned from the law enforcement officer that we expect to behave properly into a potential criminal suspect, then he shouldn't be given that advantage to look at the video beforehand. Now, that's difficult to apply in real life, because how do you set a standard and how do you give that discretion to the police investigators in the field? But in a perfect world, if that could be done, that would address a major concern with reviewing videos beforehand. So, for example, I don't know if you remember several years ago in El Monte in LA County, there was kind of an incident, a pursuit that ended with a suspect lying on the ground with his arms spread out. And the helicopter rotating above saw the police officer run up to the suspect and kick him in the head, kind of like a field goal kicker. And I don't mean to kid around, but that was the image that was portrayed. And I see some nods that you might remember this. If that aerial video had been available to the investigators before interviewing that officer, I think that could be justified as a reasonable suspicion to suspect, you know what, that might have been unlawful force that was used. I'm not going to give this officer the advantage of looking at that video. That's kind of the example I'm talking about. Second point, with regard to body cameras in general, everybody agrees if you have body cameras, all complaints go down, use of force goes down, which is everybody is concerned with. And I'm going to give you an analogy when you argue with your other assembly members over this issue. When you have a location that has a speeding problem, you put an empty patrol car out and people slow down. If you have same situation, you put up one of those speed signs that says your speed is 45 miles an hour, people become self-aware and they behave better. Just having body cameras out there will solve a lot of issues in terms of bettering police conduct and bettering the public's conduct. So I would think as assembly members, you would do your best just to get the cameras out there and not try to micromanage, respectfully I'm saying, not try to micromanage the issue too much, because that will just delay these cameras getting out there, which will have good benefits. And let me now give you the bigger context in LA County. Back in September, I was asked to go to a body camera meeting. And at that meeting, there was high-tech people from San Diego and from San Bernardino County, and also the San Bernardino County Assistant DA talking about body cameras. And at the time, I thought, why am I dragged into this meeting? Why do I have to deal with this? I'm in the Discovery Compliance Unit, but body cameras is a police issue. Several months later, because of my position, I was brought into meetings by the Sheriff's Department because they were trying to come up with a digital evidence management solution for the whole county. And they had vendors come in speaking all day about how their systems can handle our digital evidence. And we spent 3 weeks or 3 full-day meetings on this. Right at the end of that, because of recent events, the sheriff of LA County said, listen, I'm going time out on the digital evidence management system, and we're going full bore into the body camera issue. So I transitioned right into the body camera issue. I've been involved with the LA Sheriff's pilot program. I've sat in focus group meetings with the sheriffs. I've heard the deputies' comments about using the body cameras. So what's happened now is because of this activity in LA County, there was the California Police Chiefs Association had a meeting about 2 months ago where we were trying to organize the other departments in the county to get to the table so we can start discussing it. We had about 7 people at the table. LA County. We have LAPD, the sheriffs, and 45 other police agencies. We had 7 at the table. A month later, we had about 12 people at the table, and now a couple of weeks ago, we had 35 people at the table, about 17 police departments, and everybody is getting the message there. But it's a very complicated issue to implement. What I haven't heard mentioned is it's not just capturing the videos by the police department. They need to be shared with the prosecution. They need to be shared with the defense, and ultimately they need to go into the court. So because of that, we're now getting other people in LA County, the court, the head of the court, IT people, the head of the public defender's IT people. Everybody's coming to the table to figure out how to manage this incredible influx of video that's going to be hitting Los Angeles County. So if we also have to deal with worrying about bills coming from Sacramento trying to micromanage the problem, it's just going to distract this enormous process that we have going on in LA County, just trying to get the cameras out on the street. So thanks for indulging me. Now with regard to Public Records Act requests, this is a very easy answer. There's a case that is included in the handouts. The title of the case is ACLU versus the Superior Court, the real parties in interest with the LAPD and the LASD. According to this case, it's a Court of Appeal decision. Right now, it would be pretty clear that body camera videos would be exempt from Public Record Act requests because they would fall under the investigative records exception under Government Code Section 6254K. They're records of investigations. That case, I think, which was specifically applied to those cameras which photograph license plates, to scan the license plates and check them against hot lists, that case would squarely apply to body camera videos that are turned on when officers are doing enforcement action. I sent out a recommendation to the other people on this committee in Los Angeles County that when they create their policies, they should track the language in this case in order to make it clear that their videos would fall under investigative records. This case is not 100% final. There's a petition for review pending before the Supreme Court that the ACLU and the, I think, American Civil Liberties Union is trying to get the case reviewed. My money is on it's not going to get reviewed by the Supreme Court. It's a well-written case based on a lot of California Supreme Court precedent. So I think the law right now is body camera videos that are turned on when an officer is called into duty would be generally exempt from Public Record Act requests. Now, that doesn't mean that the video never comes out. If there's a criminal case behind it, a civil case behind it, courts can always issue court orders and grant subpoenas for that information that's relevant to a particular case. But as Public Records Act is concerned, by and large, body camera videos would be exempt based on this case. Thank you for listening to me. I hope I didn't go on too long.
No, not at all. Mr. Jones-Sawyer?
So in my questioning, I was trying to get to that whole point that there's a whole process that people go through, that an officer goes through when there's an incident. If on the body camera you can see an officer shooting someone in the back 6 times, I would think you may not allow that person to write a report before they do that. And to your point, that shouldn't be the case. If it looks like it's a criminal act, that they then become criminals and they have a different procedure. And so when I was asking about internal affairs with the previous panel, or when I was asking, have you prosecuted anyone from doing anything malicious with the report, I don't think they thought about the whole process of the investigation, including the DA's office and judges and juries. And obviously right now there's not a whole lot of faith in grand juries or DAs also right now. So we're not here to have that discussion right now. So the whole system right now is under, you might as well say, is under siege as far as accountability. And so when it comes to having faith in the system, the suggestion you made that when it's a criminal act, that maybe this should not be perceived as a regular routine type of traffic stop, especially when someone dies and there's a shooting. And I think that may help us move forward with whether or not we do reports before or after. And so that's an interesting suggestion you made about doing that. And so how do we move forward with that when it seems like as if law enforcement is against it? Is this something that the DA's office would recommend or think about doing?
We're meeting with all the other departments, and we're going to help try to assist them in doing their policies. I don't want to speak on behalf of the DA herself. And again, she thanks you for letting me come here today. That's District Attorney Jackie Lacey. But I would, it's going to be difficult to put in there because police departments like black and white rules. They like, you turn it on now, you turn it off at another time. You show a video all the time or never. It's kind of difficult when they get uncomfortable when you have to put discretion in the hands of a D1 investigator. But I would try to work for that solution. That should be some exception that if some reasonable suspicion to believe that a police officer committed a crime, that he shouldn't be given that advantage. Because although I can't come up with examples of knowing when police officers have tried to tailor their statement to some video evidence, I think common sense dictates that it is reasonably possible that an officer would try to change his statements if he did something wrong and then had the benefit of seeing the video behind it, which is the same reason why law enforcement doesn't give criminal suspects the advantage of seeing all the evidence or all the video before getting questioned.
Okay, and thank you for the information on body camera and investigative records, and hopefully you can keep us abreast of what that is, how that's proceeding. But also, I don't think I'm from the LA area. I don't think I got that information that you said you gave out to all the LA area assembly people. So I would like to get a.
Oh, I'm sorry. It was the information to the people, the law enforcement agencies that have been attending the California Peace Officers Association meetings. But if there was a way that I could get into your information loop, perhaps to our legislative advocate, I'd be happy to share information with you.
Consider it done.
Mr. Gallagher?
Well, kind of a question and a comment also. I do think it's interesting what you proposed, and I wonder what the standard. What you need a black and white standard. I think you need some kind of black and white standard of when you're not going to allow an officer to review the camera, right? And I guess the word I'm thinking in my head is probable cause, not reasonable suspicion. So I'd like to kind of hear your thoughts on that. But I'm just wondering as I'm thinking about this, why in any scenario you wouldn't allow the officer to review it, because ultimately, reviewing all those things, including your own memory and looking at the camera, is going to lead to a better overall report. And in the case that there was someone out there that was trying to do something untoward, reviewing the tape is just going to foil that plan, isn't it? I mean, because ultimately the tape's going to show what it shows. And if somebody were to write a report before viewing the tape and then review the tape and tell a different story, that's going to get taken care of by reviewing the tape in the first place, right? I mean, because they're not going to be able to explain that away when everybody knows there's a tape out there, right? So I'm just wondering if in every case you would allow the officer to review the tape, because then they're going to have to account for what's shown on the video.
I agree.
Right about that?
I agree. I think if you had to go with one rule or the other, review it always or review it never before, then I would go with review always before, for the reasons that you're stating, that you're going to have the video evidence anyway. So if it's strong enough, it doesn't really matter what the officer says. But there would be circumstances that, and it may not just be, the use of the gun or the use of the taser, which is a little more clear. There might be more subtle instances of police misconduct that you wouldn't, if you had some suspicion that the officer was really a criminal suspect, you wouldn't want to give the officer the advantage of seeing all the evidence before you question them. It's a sticky issue. I hope I didn't confuse you, because my real goal was to say just facilitate, give money if you can, and facilitate these cameras going out there. But
I think most chiefs or sheriffs would agree with you. They're honing on a criminal investigation. That person's not going to review that videotape. I'd feel comfortable doing that. Versus a use of force versus a criminal is very different. Excessive force, okay, days off. But if you're looking at a criminal investigation, I think most folks, reasonable folks here, would say, yeah, you can't look at it. So I definitely agree with that. I know Assemblyman Bonta has just joined us. He's been busy. You want to make a comment, Rob?
Thank you, Chair Cooper. I just wanted to thank you for your leadership in convening this meeting and hearing on this important issue. It's something that body cameras as a policy and as an issue needing funding throughout the state of California has been something we've been dealing with squarely here in the state legislature this year. A number of us on this committee have been working on that issue. And I think it's going to be an important tool in improving law enforcement and community relations. And I'm honored to chair, along with Assemblymember Joan Sawyer here to my left, the Select Committee on the Status of Boys and Men of Color. And there's a lot of overlap between what we're working on today and through this committee and the work that we're doing on the Select Committee on the Status of Boys and Men of Color. So thank you for your leadership, Chair Cooper, and appreciate you addressing this issue squarely today.
Mr. Quirk?
On another issue, so I understand that, first of all, I was in another committee and just got back here. But I understand you do feel that these are not necessarily public record. The concern I have is when there is an investigation and the investigation is done and the officer is either convicted of a crime or exonerated either by an internal affairs or by a court, then I think it might be proper to release the evidence because these things then do become things that become controversial within the community. And what I'm worried about is the selective release. So, for example, L.A. had an incident that I can't completely describe, but basically it was something went on in Skid Row. There were cameras. They released the video showing basically exonerating the police, which is fine. But when there is a case where there's more suspicion about whether or not the officer should be exonerated, maybe they wouldn't release it, in which case you would have a real public storm. So I'm just wondering if you can think of any way to sort of balance things in this way.
With all due respect, the example you cited of that Skid Row use of force, the video that you saw that was on the news was actually a bystander's cell phone video. The videos that were actually on the officers themselves haven't been released. I actually met with the officer who was involved in that officer-involved shooting. And I've spoken to LAPD about it, and they also are pained over that dilemma. They would like to show these videos, which show most oftentimes police officers acting heroically in the face of extreme danger. They'd love to release those, but if that was the case, then they're going to open up the exemption and have to, release them in all the cases. And in that case, then you start, violating victims' and witnesses' privacy, and you get into all those issues. So I think right now you can't really have it both ways. If they're going to be investigative records and exempt from the PRA, you're not going to be able to craft an exception and say, well, sometimes when we want to release it or when it's a matter of great public interest, then we're going to release it. That's all going to have to play out in the courts, I think. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further questions? First of all, I want to thank the panelists for coming out and sharing their knowledge with us today, and also my committee members for being here for this committee. Hopefully we've all learned something we can take away today. I know I learned quite a bit today in listening to some of the speakers, and it is it's a very hot button topic right now. It's going on. We see it nationwide, and like I said in my earlier statement, I do support the use of body-worn cameras. It's a great tool, and I would like to see as many out there as we can. And I think the easier we make it for agencies to adopt these policies, you'll see more and more folks adopt them. And I think the bad actors are going to continue to be bad, whether they're wearing a camera or not. And I think that's been proven out in a number of circumstances with that. And we want to build that transparency and trust with the community. It's important. I mean, we've lost it, and we need to work on it. And hopefully this is a start, and we all leave here today with a little bit more knowledge than we had before. So, community members, thank you. I know it's been a long time, almost 3 hours, but I truly appreciate this. And in the end, hopefully we get a better product. So thank you, and have a good day.
Thank you.